So I sat down today thinking I'm just going to review season 4 of The Dragon Prince, but then I went over to Rotten Tomatoes and checked out the audience score, and it only has a shockingly low 64% approval rating. So you know what, we're not just going to review season 4. I'm going to defend it and tell you why you're wrong about this season of The Dragon Prince. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and yes, we are completely done with season 4 of The Dragon Prince, so I'm ready to get into all of my thoughts and some spoilers. So if you haven't finished season 4 of The Dragon Prince, leave a like, go ahead and save this video and then come back to it afterwards. But guys, we're completely done. I watched all 9 episodes, and you can find all of those reactions in the link below. And guys, it was a wild season. I also joined my buddy Mike Thomas over on his YouTube channel and chatted about season 4 of The Dragon Prince with another fellow content creator, Christian from Film Optics, so you guys can find that link as well in the description below, where we talk a little bit more candidly about the season. But for this video, guys, I'm giving you my positives and my negatives, because for the most part, I think that this season is getting way too much negative feedback, and I can't wait to tell you why. Now, before we get into it, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I absolutely love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button for more videos like this. And trust me, just because season 4 of The Dragon Prince is over doesn't mean my coverage of The Dragon Prince also stops. We're going to get into my character rankings for this season, my episode rankings, and maybe I'll drop a little theory video on when we might be able to see season 5 of The Dragon Prince. Alrighty guys, so without further ado, let's get into season 4, The Mystery of Erebos. Dang it, I get that name wrong sometimes. I'm like Soren.
I know about Arvados.
As we know, season 4 is now streaming on Netflix, and the show is created by Ehasz and Justin Richmond, and the voice cast is stellar as usual, led by Paula Burrows, Jack the Sena, Sasha Rojen, Jason Simpson, Racquel Belmonte, Jesse Inokala, and yes, Eric Dellums. Boy, Erebos' voice was even creepier this season. But y'all, there are some really good takeaways about The Dragon Prince season 4, and it really begins with this first. I have so many notes here. It begins with this. The season itself, in my opinion, finally finds its footing after episode 3, and it doesn't really let up off the gas. Did season 4 start off really sluggish? Absolutely, but eventually we get a more mature tone and a similar vibe from season 3 that we're used to here in season 4. There's also a lot of interconnecting with storylines that I really appreciated. We see that on full display earlier in this season with, King Ezrin given his speech, and they actually kind of parallel that speech with Ibis's death. So there is a lot of different ways that these storylines come together, and then eventually I think the payoff in the finale is worth all of the build-up. Now, in some regards, there are elements that I wish they maybe expounded upon, but for the most part, the way that they were able to blend these storylines together made for a pretty compelling second half of season 4. And then there's the writing itself, which I believed got stronger as the season went on. The first 2 episodes be darned, because man, there was some really weak writing right at the beginning of season 4 that turned off a lot of you. I noticed in the comments you said you watched episodes 2 and 3 and felt, you know what, I'm done with this season. But I really encouraged everyone as much as I could to stay with it, because I do feel like the writers maybe got their feet wet and they had to reintroduce us all into this world of Catullus and Xadia, so we needed to make sure that we were all on the same page before they could really start sprinting towards that finish line. But yes, I do think the writing, especially for our B and C plots, got better, because we know the A plot is Callum, Rayla, Ezra, and Zim going to Umber Tor to try and stop Erebos from escaping, and then the B plot is with Claudia, and it is with Viren, Terry, and now Sir Sparklepuff. What a weird creature. And the C plot is the Sunfire Elves and human conflict, which I felt was actually really strong. So you can see how there are 3 different plots, and the writing for each plot, in my opinion, was just better as we got towards episode 9. And after having a lot of time to sit with this season and think about it, I do feel if you view this season as less of one to answer every question, the storylines themselves are more enjoyable. It's true, guys, because I noticed a lot of fans wanted all of the questions answered. Raylan, what about them? Can they get resolved by the end of the season? We have Claudia and Viren, will they find Erebos? Will Erebos finally show up in every episode? There was almost too much of a demand, and we have to remember, this show's been renewed up to season 7 on Netflix, so if that's the case, why would you want everything to be answered in season 4? There's got to be a runway. You know, one of my buddies put it very nicely this way. He said, seasons 1, 2, and 3, that was its own act. Now we got 4, 5, 6, and possibly 7 being its own saga, and that would make sense, especially for the direction they're taking us in, and with the breadcrumbs they left towards the end of season 4. So I really appreciated that this season, if you look at it more as a stepping stone, it's not as terrible as some people are making it out to be. Is it strong? Well, it could have been stronger, but I do feel that this season is still really good. And when I viewed season 4 like that, it gave me a lot of excitement for the following season. Season 5, I think, is going to be incredibly strong, and there's really no reason to not trust the direction they're going in. There's a finale here that is just so lovely. I felt that season 4's finale was one of the stronger finales. I would probably put it number 2 behind season 3's big ol' endgame style battle, but I do love what they did here because they gave you enough to chew on. You got Rayla getting the coins of her parents and Runan, like, come on, that was such a beautiful moment with her and Claudia. And then you even have Callum and Rayla getting a moment, but more importantly, the whole gang is together to try and stop Claudia and Viren from freeing Erebos, which it looks like they're going to do since they have the map and they use the little goopy goo or whatever the heck it's called. It's so darn goofy. But yeah, Viren's got his staff now too, so there's a lot to play with where you understand that, okay, season 4 was really a starting off point for this new saga, and season 5 is where we're going to get a lot more action. And it helps that the voice work here is just as consistent as seasons 1 through 3, even though I felt maybe in the beginning it was a little choppy. It did almost feel like they were knocking the rust off the wheels in episodes 1 through 3, but after that, things got a lot more easier to digest, especially as a fan. Paula Burrows is a standout as Rayla. She's able to convey so much emotion in these scenes, and I even love what Jack the Sena did with Callum, because this is probably the first time we've seen this character so jaded towards Rayla, and I really thought the best character, the best voice work in this season, the MVP, guys, is a character I did not expect, but it is Soren. Jesse and Okala's work with Soren in this season was so fun because at first I really thought, oh man, bad jokes, they're just going to use him as a running gag. But instead they give him hero moments, especially in the finale where he's urging everyone to push the door, and of course Bait was the one to open it, but his speech was incredible. And then I loved the sense of dread in his face when he sees his father, not knowing that he was alive this whole time, well, dead, but then brought back, of course. So it's interesting to see how I feel Jesse and Okala grew with his character in this season, and Jack the Sena, Paula Burrows, that is a nice trio there. And huge shout out too to Sasha Rojen, who did a really nice job with Ezran, even though I feel like they kind of wrote Ezran a little reserved this season. There could have been, I think, more room for growth, and they'll get there. I just hope it's sooner rather than later. And I really gotta shout out one of my favorite new characters in the Dragon Prince, and that's Rex Igneous. Ben Cotton, I believe, is the voice actor who did all of that for Rex. And oh my gosh, funny, humorous, well, that is funny. And then you also have the sinister vibe, because when he gets upset feeling like he's been bamboozled by Claudia and Rayla and all them, there is a deep sense of fear that he invokes into those who was watching those episodes, and that was me towards the end as well. So Ben Cotton did a really good job with the voice work, and I mean, other than that, I don't necessarily think there are standouts here. I mean, everyone's pretty solid all the way around, but I would say those 4, you got Paula Burrows, Jack the Sena, you have Jesse and Okala, and Ben Cotton. They all did a really good job. Now, I do want to shout out the writing for Claudia, because Racquel Belmonte, you know, she does a really good job with this character. She's consistently great. It's just the writing I felt like was much stronger for Claudia this season as well. So all of our main characters plus some new additions made for a really stellar cast. Now, outside of the acting, I do want to talk about the technical elements in season 4, because there are some bright spots, And I kind of want to start with the animation. Listen, okay, the animation, I have some problems with it too, but we'll wait until the negative section. But I felt there were some bright spots with the way that they animated certain scenes. The Arch Dragon designs are at its peak here in Season 4. I mean, Zim looked great. You had Zubeia looked amazing. Rex Igneous looked intimidating. There was a lot of really cool takeaways here. The scenery was beautiful as always. I love the combination of the more realistic models coupled with the background that is more hand-drawn. I love going into Rex's lair and seeing all of the different opals, right? The moon opal. It was so beautiful to really witness some of these sets that they were building, and I loved exactly what they did with the work in the Drakewood, for example. There's this amazing sense of adventure that is only really aided by the animation in some instances. And then there's the action in Season 4, most notably the fight between Ibis and Claudia, where we get Claudia doing some Matrix moves, Ibis is floating around, and it just looked beautiful, and it also flowed very well. So all the action here in Season 4 I felt was filmed properly, but also animated very sharply, and I even thought the animations for Viren and Claudia were pretty good in some instances too. They were probably the most animated of any of our main characters. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I would say the animation had its bright spots. It's just not as good as it could have been. Now, the last point I want to bring up here is the music composition for Season 4. You guys, I think this is the best it's ever been. Frederick Wiedmann did an amazing job with Seasons 1 through 3, where there were some captivating pieces of music that also helped paint the picture in your head and bring you back to some of those earlier episodes. But here in Season 4, there's just another level that he plays with. There's a huge crescendo when it's necessary. There's a lot of different environments that are only able to feel as effective when you're watching them. I felt more immersed in these environments because of the score. It deserves to be given all the recognition it needs because it is so incredibly well composed. I never felt at any moment that I was taken out of a scene because of the music. Instead, the music always pulled me in. So Frederick Wiedmann did an amazing job here, and I want to not be too negative, but guys, those are all the positives I have for Season 4. While I do believe you are wrong for the most part, guys, about being so upset with Season 4, I kind of want to get into the negatives now. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if you think maybe you don't agree with these negatives, or maybe if you do agree with all my positives, you can let me know too. However, there were some things about Season 4 where it just held it back from being great. In the grand scheme of things, Season 4 is the weakest season of The Dragon Prince, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. And some of these elements didn't help its case, and I gotta begin with what we just talked about too. The animation. In Season 4, the animation just felt off, okay? Something about these newly rendered 3D models that, yes, lend themselves to maybe more flexibility in hair, with like Callum's hair floating in the wind, and it makes sense, and the lighting is a little bit better. But man, it's just too stiff. These models were just far too stiff, and it never looked natural to me compared to Seasons 1 through 3, where I loved the art style. It had this hand-drawn approach with some 3D rendering, but it never felt as artificial as it does in Season 4. It just, to me, was way too distracting, especially in episodes 1 through 3. After that, I got a little bit used to it, but it still was one of those areas of Season 4 where I never could really get around to loving completely. And what baffles me is that in the intro for Season 4, every single intro, I mean, you get the old art style from Season 3. And I wondered, what happened maybe in production where they thought we gotta go with a different approach. And it's one thing to add maybe more lighting and shade differently, but it felt like all of the models were almost brand new in Season 4, and it never really looked great. And for as much as I actually really liked the writing in this season, I had an issue, especially as a fan of Raylan, with how they treated Callum and Raylan together. I'm just very conflicted, you guys, because on one hand, it's good because it is a realistic approach to the relationship. There's a dynamic feel to it because Rayla's been gone for 2 years and then just shows up and says, hi, and that can't be a thing, you know. She can't expect Callum to be running up with arms open wide, but I thought eventually by episode 4 or 5, Callum would kind of come around, but then I started to get a lot more nervous about the direction of the relationship because the show just doesn't focus on it. Every time we get one moment, it's either Soren interrupting or Callum telling Rayla, hey, you gotta kill me, okay? And what kind of sidebar conversation is that? Like, Callum, dog, I get it, but this whole time, they're teasing both of them having this conversation and resolution, and we never get there. Now, will we get it in season 5? I hope, but I just wasn't happy as a fan of Raylan because we never focused enough on them. What would have solved a lot of my issues with this would have been maybe a Rayla alone episode. Yes, that's a nod to Avatar: The Last Airbender because we got a Zuko alone episode that allowed us to peel back the curtain on Zuko and appreciate his character and of course the development and the construction of Zuko's dynamic as we get closer to the series finale. But here, we never got this alone time with Rayla. Yes, based on the short story, we know she went to go look for Viren to then protect Callum, but they don't really touch on that. And I remember the creators saying that we wouldn't need to read these graphic novels and short stories, as good as they are, but we kind of need that now because there was no context that was filled in with season 4. We just don't understand Rayla's motivations fully, and that broke my heart as a huge Rayla fan because we're just not getting enough development with this character, and I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity. And another creative decision that really didn't work for me was having Erebos in only one episode. Now, is it a good idea to not overuse Erebos? Yes, and I will give credit to Justin Richmond and Aaron Ehasz. They're treating Erebos like Darth Vader in Star Wars Rebels, where when you get Darth Vader on screen, you know it's serious business. But even then, in Star Wars Rebels, in one single season, we got more Darth Vader than we did Erebos in a season that's literally subtitled The Mystery of Erebos. Not a great look, and also Erebos' appearance made for literally the best episode in season 4. So I don't understand why we didn't see more of him, and even if they would have teased us with Erebos in the finale of him maybe stepping out of the prison and into the real world, foot on the ground, fade to black, created by, like that would have worked for me if they rolled credits right after they revealed Erebos is stepping out of prison, but they didn't do that. Instead, they showed Viren basically turning evil all over again, touching that staff and really letting dark magic consume his body. And that's not a bad ending for the season, but it also baffles me at why we didn't get more Erebos. And for as much as I love the humor in The Dragon Prince, season 4 was probably the humor at its worst. Oh man, the comedy here was not great. Fart jokes, really? It was just too much of that flossing. What are we in 2018? Like, what is going on here? It's just too much of them trying to break the immersion in the worst way. Usually the humor in The Dragon Prince is very much in line with what our characters are doing and not talking about real world instances. Instead, they went the route of trying to appeal to a wider audience by including jokes that are too childish in nature to where it does not actually appeal to children, nor does it appeal to adults. So there was another miss there for me. But honestly, outside of that, you guys, I still think that season 4 of The Dragon Prince is a solid season of television, and it's honestly giving us some of the best Dragon Prince content that we've ever gotten. When Erebos controls Callum, that was the Dragon Prince at its peak. When we get Rex in the lair giving us backstory, it was compelling. When we have Zubeia facing off against Rex, it was captivating. There's a lot about season 4 to really appreciate, even with all of its flaws. And that's my thing. No season of television is perfect, unless you look at the final season of Breaking Bad, which pretty darn perfect. But I do not necessarily think this season of television deserves all the hate it's been receiving. Boy, it's just been such a backlash. And I know I did drop a video of what's wrong with season 4 so far, because through the first episode, I kind of saw some red flags that unfortunately were continued to be raised by the end, with the humor, with the animation, and maybe a less of a mature approach at times. But I do think that this season not only ends strong, but it really pays off to wait and be patient with season 4, because by the finale, there's a lot of cool things that happen. Now, I'm not willing to rate this season 5 out of 5 or even a 4.5 out of 5, but I would probably give this season a very weak 4 jelly tarts out of 5. And the reason I say that is for basically everything I said plus this. For the 3-year wait that we had to endure, is this the best season they could have followed up with? Probably not. Did production during COVID maybe hurt the season? I can see that, yes, so I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but there were a lot of moments that felt anticlimactic, and sometimes I thought to myself, maybe we did need an extra episode or 2 of this season, or a shorter lead time with the introduction back into Catullus with episodes 1 through 3. We needed less time spent trying to get a new audience in, and more time spent catering to those hardcore fans who are already installed into the world of the Dragon Prince. But for the most part, like I said, I would give this like an 80 out of 100. You know, it's not a terrible season of television, but I'm not entirely in love with season 4. I mean, even if I had to rank the seasons, it'd probably be 3, 2, 1, and 4 for me. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say, because that's all I got on season 4 of The Dragon Prince. Those are my positives, my negatives, and some areas where I was a little in between. But let me know in the comments what you think of season 4. Where does it rank for you? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel below, because we're not done talking about The Dragon Prince season 4. I'm dropping my episodes ranking, my characters ranking, and I don't know, y'all. Maybe the creators need to talk about season 5 a little bit, a little tease. Maybe they can give us some updates on the direction in which it's going. And if they do, we're covering it right here on the channel. Alrighty, y'all, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And no, I don't have any brown sludge tarts. Who's even asking that question?